Hello and welcome back for another video. This morning we're in my office. Going to cover a couple topics. What I really want to go over today is top 3 reasons why I feel you should retire early. Okay, so before we get into that, I just want to show a little bit of changes here to my office. The Gettysburg cannons now are over here behind me on the wall. And then over here, as you can see, we have a 50-inch TV that I use now as a monitor that can project my notes like you were seeing there. Got rid of my desktop computer and I have a laptop here in front of me, so I can use that. So a little different setup than what we've had in previous lives. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit about why to retire early, or why I retired early / why I think you should. And I'm going to give you my top 3 reasons. Okay, first, all right, is to escape job burnout. I think I brought this up, before. I was just completely burnt out after 40 plus years of doing what I've been doing. I just need to do something different, and I know I'm not alone in that. A lot of people feel that way, and when you do something for a very long time, it's easy just to get kind of bored with it. And that's kind of where I found myself, was I just wanted something new. And, so I'm still looking for that something new. Now I'm doing substitute teaching at the local high school, or local schools, I should say. All right. And look at a couple of other things to fill a little bit of my time beyond, all right, my 2 YouTube channels. But, I needed to get away from what I was doing because it just wasn't fun anymore. All right, and I'm sure a lot of people out there feel the same way. All right, you don't have that passion for it anymore, so you need to find something else to do. All right. Reason number 2: pursue hobbies and other passions, which is kind of what I'm doing. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to really be a college professor, but it never really worked out. So now I'm looking at options maybe to where I can do some of that. Certainly by doing some substitute teaching, that's helping, build a little bit of that to find out if it's something I truly want to do. And that's the beauty of being retired is you can try it. And if you find that you had passion for it, but it really isn't what you thought, you can go do something else. You're not stuck in something. You're not really committed to it. You have a lot of flexibility. At least that's what I'm finding I have. And compared to my previous life, which was 24/7, and it never ever stopped. You're constantly on involved in something and constantly running. It's nice to have some control over, what I do on a daily basis. And I have to admit, I'm a month in here, not even quite a month in here into retirement, but I'm enjoying it. I mean, I really kind of like the flexibility, kind of like the, being able to do what I want to do. Now, what I do find is interesting, this is Monday and I'm recording this video for a Sunday, but, this morning we woke up to snow, all right, which wasn't expected, and schools are closed. So not only am I, not substitute teaching today, but my wife is home because she works at a separate school district for me here in northern Kentucky, and kind of not expected, kind of not planned, but it's still got to sleep in, didn't have to do too many crazy things. It was kind of nice. So, being able to pursue your hobbies, like I love to do photography, and I enjoy the YouTube stuff, so I'm able to work on that. Plus, look for something a little bit different. Is a great reason to retire early. And then number 1, and that's really the main reason for having this discussion is you never know how much time you have left. Now, I want to give some examples here, a couple of stories from my past, all right, and that I don't think I've shared, at least this first one. When I used to work for a company called Avery Dennison, and early on in my life at Avery Dennison, I had a gentleman working for me who was 60 years old at the time, planning for retirement, had just bought a motorhome, so he and his wife could travel after he retired. He was planning on retiring at 62. All right, his kids were grown out. He was a grandparent. Just really to what he felt was a good point in life. All right, so for a couple of weeks he was having some stomach pains, but nothing major. I didn't think much of it, and he and his wife had planned a week vacation. We're going to take their motor home and go out and kind of test it out and enjoy it. So they went and did that. When he got home, he went to the doctor because the pains are still there. It wasn't great, but the pains were still there. All right, and got checked out. Now, I'm never going to forget this. It was a few days after he went to the doctor. He comes into my office, he sits down in front of me, and he looks at me and says, "I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm retiring right now." I'm like, why? He says, I got got a call from my doctor, and he tells me I've got pancreatic cancer, and I don't know how long I've got left to live, but I don't want to spend it doing this. I want to spend it doing whatever I want to do. And from that moment on, he was retired. All right. Problem is 6 weeks later, I was at his funeral. All right, and he didn't really get much time to enjoy anything. I got to meet his wife and his kids and his grandkids, and see a lot of pictures and things. But ultimately, he had great plans. They worked on it for years. They knew what they were going to do, but ultimately he never got to do it. He died very early. All right, so now this is from last week. All right, and this is not mine. This is actually my wife's. I spent last Friday with my wife and several of her former co-workers at a memorial for someone she had worked with for several years who never got to retire. All right, and this is the interesting one. All right, she was, she died just 2 weeks short of her 65th birthday, but. And what was going on was she worked the lunch in the cafeteria like my wife does. They worked together. She'd done it for more than 20 years. All right. And her husband, was having a lot of health problems. He ended up having to have a double lung transplant. And a lot of stress going on with that. All right. So, she was having some issues. All right. They thought they were basically just anxiety or depression or something to that effect going on because of all the things going on in her husband's life. All right. And they treated her as for that, all right? And I'm gonna say somewhere in early October, all right, of last fall, she just all of a sudden got real cranky and angry and didn't want to get up out of bed and do anything, which was extremely odd for this individual. So they did a little bit more looking, and again, still thought it was depression, but ultimately came back when they did some tests that she had brain cancer. All right, and so she died earlier this year. All right, 2 weeks short of her 65th birthday. Didn't really have much time. She really never got to retire or enjoy anything. And the point in those two stories is that we don't know. We don't know at all. So the sooner we can retire and do things that take stress out of our lives, that help us relax and help us get into things that we've always wanted to do but couldn't do, I think the better off we'll be. Now, for me, that's 61 and a half. For others, it might be a little bit older, might be a little bit younger. It doesn't really matter. But my encouragement here is, since you don't know, how many days you have left, is whenever you can, get out. Walk away. And turn your passion into some other things, whatever it may be. Spending time with your grandkids or a hobby or whatever. But you don't need to work, forever and ever and ever. All right, it's not good for you. It's not a great thing. And again, I know there's some out there that's really what they love, and that's fine. If that's what you love, keep doing it. All right, but if you're out there and you're like me, you're burnt out, you're trying to figure out what to do, what's next, find a way to walk away. All right, so I'm not going to ramble today. Just going to end the video there, or here I should say, and just say, remember, to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave me some comments down below about why you think retiring early, that is a good idea. Is there something maybe that I've missed that you think is important? But would appreciate that. So anyway, thanks for coming along, everybody. Till we see you again, stay safe.